and welcome back to another All Things Microsoft 365 Compliance. And I'm Ryan Murphy, Compliance Practice Lead at Epic Global. And of course, as always, I'm joined by Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, welcome to the show. My name's Nikki Chappell. I'm the Principal Cloud Architect at Cloudway, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP. And it's a real pleasure for me to introduce our dear friend, Peter Rising, onto the show today. Over to you, Peter.
Oh, thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. It's lovely of you to invite me. It's been a long time coming. So yeah, I'm Peter Rising. I am a Microsoft MVP in Microsoft 365 Apps and Services. I think the category is now called. Not like Microsoft to rename things, eh? But I'm also a technical author and security, compliance, and identity specialist, amongst other things, for my sins. So thank you very much for welcoming me to the show today.
You're very welcome. And today we're going to be talking about eDiscovery Premium, right?
Exactly, yes. So a feature within Microsoft Purview, eDiscovery Premium is really the only eDiscovery, in my opinion, worth using. But just to set the scene a little bit, eDiscovery, if you don't know what it is, or electronic discovery, if you want to use a more precise definition, it's a feature within Microsoft Purview, which is obviously the umbrella term for all things compliance in Microsoft 365. And with eDiscovery, you can identify and provide information that pertains to any legal cases or internal investigations that might be in progress within an organization. So compliance administrators can set controls for who can manage and create eDiscovery cases within an environment. And the whole reason for this is to search for content within Microsoft 365 locations. And that can include Exchange Online, OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online, Teams, Microsoft 365 Groups, Yammer, and some non-Microsoft 365 locations as well. So it's a very, very powerful tool. There are different versions of it. If you look on Microsoft's Learn pages for eDiscovery, they describe there being 3 different tools for eDiscovery. They count content search as being part of the eDiscovery suite in the documentation. I would sort of contest that. I don't think that really is part of eDiscovery as such, but I can see why they do it, because content search is then part of eDiscovery, the standard version, with which you can search for and export content. You can do case management, and you can apply legal holds. So eDiscovery standard is really a step up from that content search experience. But the real value comes in eDiscovery Premium, which up until about a year ago was known as Advanced eDiscovery. Again, another name change from our lovely friends at Microsoft. And as you can imagine, eDiscovery Premium, you've got to have the big licenses to leverage that in some way, shape, or form. Microsoft 365 E5, you're going to get your Premium eDiscovery with that, Office 365 E5 as well. And then there's the various step-ups you can do with compliance add-ons to E3 and all that sort of stuff. The list is endless, but it's such a powerful tool that organizations that are quite heavily regulated and will have a lot of subject access requests and investigations, legal cases, internal investigations, they're gonna use this a lot. I mean, in my current role at the minute, I've been working with a lot of sort of local authorities and police forces who are using eDiscovery Premium quite widely in their day-to-day activities. And it's really nice to see the tool being used effectively and properly, because there's not a lot of awareness about it really generally. I find in the Microsoft community in general, it's a very, very misunderstood tool. So yeah, that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I've noticed, and I'm sure Nikki and Peter, you've noticed yourself, that over the last, I'd probably say the last 6 to 9 months, there has been a real uptake of eDiscovery. And speaking to some of my customers, it's purely been down to the fact of, they have these E5 licenses, or they have an E3, and they've noticed that there's an eDiscovery bolt-on there for them to be able to use it. And they're kind of thinking, well, if I can use this and it's in place, and Microsoft are all famous for saying, everything in M365 is built to work together. So you're going to get more retrieval out of that context when you're doing those searches. What can I gain from adopting eDiscovery Premium? I think time is one of them, and the speed it can go through and bring back all those data sets that are relevant to the workloads of where your data is. And I think secondly, a big one is down to cost. If you can kind of move away from sometimes those very expensive on-premise solutions, or even outsourcing your eDiscovery for a bolt-on license, or managing the license that you've got with E5, that's where I'm kind of seeing the interest now of, okay, there's tools there. Some people that I've spoken to have said, I didn't even know it existed. What's it about? Can I go there? What's it going to give me over what I've got? So I do see that trend now coming up. Don't know about yourself.
I agree completely with that. And I think the key word you said there of what it brings is it gives you time, because it can save you an awful lot of time in what it is capable of doing, because it enables you to create these cases and create collections or searches, as they used to be known, and then export that content into what are called review sets. And we can take a little look at this in a few moments, a very, very quick whistle-stop demo of what it looks like. But then when you wait for the searches to all complete and it gathers what it can find based on your search criteria, you can review what's there in review sets, and the power that you've got there to export the content, filter the content. You can redact, you can annotate, you can commit stuff to other review sets. It's so powerful how you can present that information to whoever requested it. And you're right, it does tie in with other Microsoft 365 products as well. I'm trying to remember which one it is. It might be Prever, the privacy tools, but there's one tool where you can, from within, you can, if appropriate, you can convert that into an eDiscovery case right from within that application. And I think it's it might be inside a risk management, actually. Yes, it is. That's right. That's the one.
Definitely do it in there, because obviously if you're doing those searches in insider risk management or communication compliance, and if you do discover that that's risky behavior, you may want to then escalate that through.
So and I really like that feature as well, because like Nikki just, if you're in that deep dive of insider risk management and you can see that there's been activity on this user, you can just basically go and click investigate, and it automatically spins up that case in the background, gives it a name, brings in the custodians and all the data mapping and so on and so forth. So again, a nice feature from Microsoft, wrapping it back into eDiscovery Premium.
Go on, Nikki.
I was going to say, I think the also interesting thing about this, that this is a tool for end users. So it's no longer somebody having to go to IT and say, I want to go away and find me this data across all these systems. You can empower the people in the legal teams with the relevant training. They know how the process works. They just need to know what kind of the search criteria are, and they can just go and do it themselves.
And I think, Nikki,
completely.
Sorry, Peter. No, I was just going to say,
no,
I think just on that point, right? I think for me, working with some very, very large customers over the last 6 to 8 months just on eDiscovery, okay, that target operating model of where you would used to go to IT and IT would go and do the searches for you, you now become that IT person as that investigator, and it's you that's basically working with eDiscovery. It's you that's entering that search criteria. It's you going to that review set and annotating that review set and, refining that data down. And like Peter mentioned just at the beginning, Microsoft does give you the opportunity to create role-based access groups and filter those permissions down. So you can have, let's say, for argument's sake, IT operations can create the case and they can add the custodians in. But Peter, as an investigator, can't create a case and can't add any more custodians in. He can just go and do his search criteria and refine the data within the review set, and you can even prevent them from exporting that out. But getting that person who used to do all the theoretical parts, now doing the IT parts, that for me, and I'm sure you may have both agree, is where the biggest challenge comes in with eDiscovery Premium. It's that adoption, it's changing that target operating model so that user does that.
Yeah, it's making things clearer as to whose responsibility these things are, because historically, before we had such flexibility within tools like eDiscovery Premium, there was a lot of burden placed on IT resources, who it was always perceived that it was an IT responsibility to do these things, and IT get very frustrated. They're there to enable and support, but they can't be experts in everything. But there was that perception that they should be, but I think that's changing. Organizations that I'm dealing with are getting much more savvy to the tools that are available to them and how that ties into their own expertise and how they can leverage them to best achieve their day-to-day roles. So it's so powerful, and it's come such a long way. It really has. And the roles are so good. I mean, there are built-in roles within eDiscovery. There is the eDiscovery manager and the eDiscovery administrator roles that are built-in roles for eDiscovery. And with the manager role, you can see only the cases that you have created, and the administrator role can see all cases. But we had a specific use case with a police force that I was working with quite recently, where they wanted to take those roles even more granular and have some sort of information barrier type segregation between roles, so that a group of people on one department could see the cases that were relevant to them, and another team could see only their cases. So, and we were able to do that. It took a little bit of thinking out of the box, as the phrase goes, but we got there. And with information barrier segments as well, you can even do things like what content those individuals with specific roles can search for. You can segregate to that level as well, which was a very interesting route that we went down with another customer. So all sorts of good stuff you can do with it. It's really, really powerful.
And that's a very important point. I think having those compliance boundaries in place, those information barriers in place, Peter. It's not just a case of you're an eDiscovery manager and you can search the full tenant. You can actually filter it down, like you're saying, from what I personally work with some of my customers is per region. So they may have data sovereignty law, some of these banks or automotive companies that we work with. And it's not just a case of, okay, there's the permissions, go and search what you want. It's not like that at all. Like you're saying, with those information barriers of compliance boundaries, you can actually state, okay, well, I'm going to map an attribute to this bunch of users, and I'm going to say only Peter can search against them, but Nikki can't search against them. That, for me, has been one of the biggest winners with eDiscovery Premium with 365, because most of my customers will say, okay, the solution is great, but how do I prevent over searching or over visibility of data? And that coming in then abides back to regulatory alignment. So again, Microsoft thinking forward, here's those compliance boundaries. Here's how you can segment those data and those searches into whomever you want, wherever you want, and however you want. I really like compliance boundaries. It gives it such a massive leap.
Yeah, because there's so much in the way of search results that can be presented that it becomes an impossible task to sift through it. So with the combination of those compliance boundaries and information barriers, and then the filtering capabilities of your search results, then you've got a lot of ways of getting to the information that you need to find. So and it all comes down to only the information you need to find. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's also important to point out as well is that this works only as well as how organized you are in terms of other aspects of Microsoft 365, like your retention strategies and your data classification methodologies as well. All of these good principles, if you put them in place, they will complement the eDiscovery experience for those teams who need to use the tool. It's just setting yourself up for success by looking at, not thinking like a hermit, just being aware of the wider picture. And we all have to do that now in all aspects of Microsoft 365. At any given day, whichever topic you're talking about, it's going to tie into something else. Like SharePoint is the back end of everything, and Teams ties into so much now. So you've got to be very, very collaborative in your approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Nikki, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it also comes down to, you say, that good tenant governance, good, what do you store where, making sure people know how to use sensitivity labels or retention labels or whatever your rules are, so people have an idea of where the information is. You only keep the data you need rather than keeping everything. Just to kind of, so it's all that sort of good governance really helps with all of the I think all of the purview tools really.
Yeah, I think just on the 2 points that you've both made there as well, I think retention is absolutely an ultimate step, because if the data is not there, the data is not discoverable. So having that good retention schedule, like you both say, is probably one of the first things that I would look at when I'm going for a workshop with customer. Okay, so how are you retaining that data then if you need to discover it 10 years down the line or whatever the case may be? And the second one being, well, if I'm using encryption and I'm applying sensitivity labels to everything, can eDiscovery reason over that data? And yeah, it now can do that. So again, those 2 points are well made, and them are frequent questions that come up all the time. So do we have a look at what it's about?
Yeah,
let's do it. Yeah,
right.
I can certainly do that. Let's do it. Fantastic. Okay. So what we are seeing here, we are in the Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal, which you can get to from compliance.microsoft.com if you have appropriate privileges to do so. So we need to scroll down and look for eDiscovery. We're going to talk all about eDiscovery Premium here. We've touched briefly on the other aspects of eDiscovery. Well, content search isn't even under the eDiscovery banner, as it rightly shouldn't be. So, but we have standard and premium here, and also user data search in there as well, which is a tool which I can see going in the not so distant future, because it's really a less advanced version of what's included in Priva now for subject rights requests for privacy. So let's go into premium. And I have a few cases in here that I've been playing around with. I'll collapse the side panel so we get more screen space. And I've got 5 cases in there. You see the overview screen first. And there's a few cases in here that I've got. You can see I like to use character names from popular TV shows, Rachel Green, Teams Conversations, for example. But here we go. We can see our cases here, and we can see the name of the cases, the status, the created and modified dates, case number if entered, and description. We'll take a look at an existing case just to see how it all comes together. So this is a marketing legal investigation case, and it's showing us here the format of the case. It's in the new format. There are 2 formats you can create a case in, the older and the newer. The older one will be deprecated quite soon, I would think. The new one basically has some additional features, so you would really want to be using that as opposed to the older one. We have 2 custodians. We'll explain a bit more about custodians in a second. And we've got some communications. So this is your sort of executive level view, really. But where you would start is you would start with the data sources, because you want to add people and data to your case. So when adding a data source, for your eDiscovery searches, you have some choices here. You can add some custodians, or you can import custodians as well, or you can add specific data locations. So a custodian is essentially a user in Microsoft 365. Think of it as one of your Azure AD users. So you can add in the user here, and let's just search for Phoebe Buffet. We can find her. There she is. So we can add Phoebe to the case. Phoebe has an inactive mailbox because she does not have a license. So what we can do here, we have the choice at this stage. Any content that is detected by the case, we can choose to put that on hold for review, which is a good thing to do for sure, because in these investigations, you don't want that content being deleted until the investigation is complete. So you can add the custodian to the case. It's going to show you which areas are going to be covered, and then you can submit that. I'll not do that. I'm just showing you how that could be done. So that, and we can see other examples here of, well, Phoebe was already in, as it happens, and we've got locations within SharePoint and groups as well. So you can, and that's the actual data sources here. So if you add a data location, you can add in SharePoint sites and Exchange locations and Microsoft 365 connected apps as well. So that's your data sources. Important to get those set up in the first instance. I've probably stepped ahead a little bit, actually, in that probably your first port of call would be the settings for your case as well, which it always makes me feel a bit strange that they put that at the end. It kind of should be
Yeah.
at the start. That's a bit, but can I always do this? So here you can see what exactly is going to happen with your case, the search and analytics settings, what it's going to do in terms of the proximity of near duplicates and email threading if you select that, and the threshold for that, which you can adjust, and things like themes and minimum number of words, and whether or not you want to search for optical character recognition as well, and the maximum image size as well. So there's some nice settings in there for search and analytics that you can configure. And then access and permissions, you can add members or role groups to the case as well, so so they can get access to it if there are other people you need to add. And then you have the case information here, which you can edit as well. You have that unique long GUID ID there, the case name, a case number if you want to enter one, and a case description. I would always encourage using a numbering system. That's a good way to keep track of things, and always put in a very, very good descriptive case name and a good description so people know what it's all about. So really you should start with settings, get your data sources into place, and then we can start going into collections. So here we can see my collection that I ran to search for content in Microsoft 365. Now, when you go into a collection once it's ran, you can't really see a great deal of information in the same way that you would when you create it. So what I'll do is I'll very quickly just do a new collection just to show you what that looks like. And you go through this wizard to create your collection, and then you would add in your custodians that you've defined in the previous tab. So you can select them one by one, or you can just select them all and add them in. And then the same with non-custodial data sources, the ones that you define for the SharePoint locations, for example. So you can select those all as well. And then you can even define even more locations if need be. So it gives you a lot of options to get the search locations right for your collection. Here's where you can put in your conditions, and this is where my capabilities are quite limited, in the fact that I know, Ryan, I think if memory serves, you've been studying a bit of KQL recently, haven't you? I'm not good with KQL at all, so my capabilities there are not so grand.
Yeah,
I tend to go for the more limited.
Yeah, so what I think the good thing here is as well, to the way I kind of learned keyword query language for eDiscovery is I built out the card builder. And then when you flip on to the next page where it shows you, and I'll show you in just a moment as you go back, Peter, when you actually go back to the collections page, so you've got that search item, it actually shows you the KQL command there. So I kind of just learned from there, just basically taking what I'd built in the card builder, mapping it back into code, or cheating, copying the code, and then just pasting it back into the KQL editor here. Little tip for everybody there.
That is a really good tip, actually. Fantastic, because KQL is on my list of the ever-present list of things to learn, and I've just not really immersed myself in it. There's always something to learn with us community folk, isn't there? But yeah, I'll cancel out of that, and then we'll go back to
there you go, query text.
Query text. Where am I looking? Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So that's actually what you've built in the card builder. So you can use that yourself to kind of learn what keyword query language is about.
How that works.
It's really useful tip.
Yeah,
it really is. So I've learned something there.
Yeah, and the other thing is here you can have multiple collections. So at that beginning where you've kind of done that overall scope, that's your widest boundary. These are all the artifacts that we think are going to be part of this investigation. And then when you come in here, you can have different collections, so you can actually filter it down if you want, rather than have everything in one bucket. So I find that's quite useful as well.
Indeed.
It really is, definitely. So so yeah, once you've got that all submitted, it will commit the your collection to run, and you can keep an eye on its progress through the status. You can also keep an eye on its progress through the jobs section. The jobs section is a really good place to see what's happening and how long things have taken, so we can see that what was happening with applying holds and indexing and preparing search preview and estimates and adding the items to the review set. So you can keep on refreshing this, and then once completed, you should have your collection added to your review set, which you can then go and review. So another important thing to mention very briefly as well is the communications is a really powerful feature. In I don't actually have any, but here is where you would set up comms to tell the custodians that their data is on hold after you've committed the collection and it's completed. So if any matching content is placed on hold, as we set up in the data sources, we can send out comms to the users to let them know about that. So we can put in the name, the issuing officer, and you can select templates, which you can build from the and you set these up from the main global eDiscovery settings from the, I think it's from the cogwheel, is it? No, that's there is one somewhere on the main page where you set
at the top on the cog.
Yes, that's what I thought, but it's not that one. It must be on the main page when you come out of the case. And that's really useful, so you can get sort of escalations and reminders and keep the users informed of what is going on. And of course, you can then see in turn which content has been placed on hold, and keep track of that as well. So a lot of very, very powerful stuff. But once the search is complete, we would go into your review set, and here we have one. We can click onto our review set. And this is a very familiar view that you'll see here. You get this sort of view in a lot of the compliance applications for exploring content. So we can see here we've got some results that match. We've got some Teams chat results, and we can see that conversation in context as well. It gives us the conversation view also. So we can click on that and we can see that whole conversation. And we've got loads of options here. We can look at the source content. We can show pinned metadata. We can view in plain text. We can annotate. We can filter. We can do what we can get this content exactly how we want it. We can filter it here, and then we can, when we're happy with what we've got there, we can go ahead and we can export that and save it. So there's an absolute plethora of tabs up here where you can get insights and controls to process this. You can run analytics and show reports. You can export, download, commit any redactions that you've put in place to a PDF. You can add the content to another review set if you want to create another one. Tagging, so powerful.
I think I spend most of my time in here with customers, and I'm sure anybody listening to this or watching this that have used eDiscovery before, and you two as well, this is where the main interest is. What data have I got back? How can I interact with that data, one for a better word? And I tell you, most of the refinement comes from the filtering at the top, Peter, where you've got the filters.
Oh yes,
I think
certainly.
Once I've clicked on that and people have seen what is actually available from the filters just above your arrow there, it kind of gives you all of these elements that you can refine that data set down with. And I think more recently, from what Microsoft have give you is just where you've got the showed pinned, where you've got the showed pinned metadata as well. You can also now do let's say queries or filters against that as well. So you can literally get this down to an exact or an accurate review set or data set that you actually want, rather than having to go through and start picking out
completely
bits of data here and there. And you
these are so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the keywords there, again, you can use keyword queries within the review set if you want to refine it even more. I find that's helpful when you've got the message threading or the family ID or conversation ID of a thread of chat, or email to attachment or to a group or whatever the case may be. Microsoft have made this so powerful.
They really have. And the tagging is very good as well. So you can apply tagging, and then you can tag some content appropriately, and then you could add that tagged content to another review set to even further sort it. So there's loads of stuff you can do with this.
And I think that's another good point as well, Peter, is the fact that, let's say, you're a huge enterprise business, global business, and, maybe there's 300,000 users in there, and the amount of data that you're going to get back, using the filters to do the refinement of it is fine. But once you've started to investigate that data and say, okay, well, I'm going to tag this as relevant, and I'm going to tag this other item as non-relevant, or needs further investigation, or needs legal team to assess, and so on and so forth. You can literally go through and start tagging that data out. So anybody that's being brought into that review set as, you know, additional reviewers, or maybe a third party or a regulator or whatever the case may be, you can just say, okay, here's what you need to view. Click on the tag. It brings everything that's tagged with that particular tag naming convention, if you like, and that's it. You're focused in just on that area. Again, another major advancement, I think, from Microsoft, having that ability there.
Yeah, I think having all these capabilities are like so important. Another good use case is if you've got stuff in multiple languages, because there might be like a conversation in another language and you don't know what they're saying. So you can tag it again, get somebody that understands that to kind of go through that. But I think for me, the biggest challenge is that there is so much here. You know, and it's a case of you're suddenly going to a legal team that understand what information they want to get to, but it's this how. So it's almost like, you know, they need that really good training to really understand how powerful it is to save them time. And yeah, so it's kind of, I think particularly with the new way of working, it's really important that everyone kind of refreshes and makes sure they understand what the kind of power is of the tool.
And I think as well, I know we're close. I know we're close to time here, but I think, and I'm sure you would have touched on it as well, Peter, the export piece, the fact that you can actually export this to a secure Azure blob storage. So it's in one independent place on a worm, you know, so-called worm a drive. So it's not just randomly, the data is not just randomly pulled down onto a user's machine, which is, you know, it's there forever for them to do what they want to. I think that, again, from Microsoft has been, you know, forward thinking, get it onto secure blob storage.
Completely. And there very briefly is the eDiscovery premium settings, the cogwheel that wasn't visual when we were within the review set. So here we've got some settings that we can create for across all of our cases. So we can activate this analytics for attorney-client privilege detection, which I imagine we'll see more of these sort of features come in. But what that's going to do is when analyzing data within that working set, if you've got any attorney-client privilege detection setting on, they'll automatically run that model on the data and flag documents that are likely to be privileged. So, and you can choose a file. That's absolutely fantastic. And here's that communication library where you can set those templates, so you can define the content and the notifications and that good stuff. So this is as powerful as the work you do here to begin with. So you can choose the issuing officers that you can choose from. And then there's a preview feature here, historical versions, which is, go on, Ryan.
I think we touched on this, didn't we, Nikki, in the spotlight session with Graham Hoskins, this historical versions piece, where currently, if this is not enabled and you're looking for a modern attachment, it brings the most recent version of that file into the review set. And if you wanted the one that was at the point of share, I don't know, 50 versions ago, you'd have to start doing some, you know, self-analytics, start looking for the family idea, the conversation idea, so on and so forth, to go and find that data. But having this enabled, again, I think this is a major advantage to eDiscovery Premium. Once you've got this enabled, it brings back the file from the point of share and any other subsequent version all ready for you in a library in the review set.
Yeah.
Again,
fantastic.
Time back for your business.
Saving so much time. I think that sort of control is being brought into retention as well. I think you can retain versions as well.
It's relies on the label. Yeah. Sorry, Nikki.
Yeah, it's the lock-unlock version. So you can start with a retention label that's unlocked, work on it, lock it. That version is then a record. You can unlock it, carry on working on it, lock it again. So you actually see in the version history which ones are the formal records.
Again, some super advantages from Microsoft in the last 12 months on this.
Yeah, well, I'm going to stop sharing now because I just purely for the risk that I know we're getting close to time, and also when I start talking about a subject I'm passionate about, I can go on forever. So I'm going to rein myself in.
I think we're at time anyway, there, aren't we, Nikki?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's been a really useful session, Peter, for trying to get to kind of understand that the really powerful capabilities of eDiscovery. And if you're not using it in your organization, it's something that you should actively consider.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Peter. It's been a brilliant session. We were honored to have you, so thanks very much for sparing some time for us.
It's a real pleasure. Always good to see you both. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. All right, then, until next time, thank you very much. See you next time.
Bye.